blah, 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 blah.
Watched Arsenal in big games this season against Tottenham and against City. And look, they've both been difficult games. Tottenham are in good form and obviously City are City and they don't give a lot away. Nketiah and Jesus. There's talk this morning of Tony being linked with Arsenal in January. Right, I'm going to come to you because obviously your position at Arsenal, how you played. There's no doubt Nketiah and Jesus, they worked their absolute socks off. But in quality terms, I just found in those two matches, is that going to be enough to win Arsenal the league? That's my only doubt, is actually a centre-forward. Because if they'd have the centre-forward, like if they had Haaland, if they had a Kane, I'd be saying it's Arsenal, I think, if they can keep Saliba and Gabriel and Rice fit. But honestly, I worry about Nketiah and Jesus. They're erratic.
Interesting take here by Gary Neville. And I want to understand your opinion on what he's saying here. He's predicted a number of times so far this year for Arsenal to win the Premier League. Now, there is doubt creeping in. Is this fair in your opinion from Gary Neville? Or is this his hatred of Arsenal spilling through? Before you comment, by the way, I'd love you to hit the like button, subscribe, and make sure you are turning on the bell notifications for the Football Terrace so you don't miss any of our content. So proud of how many of you subscribe, so proud of how many of you watch every day. But YouTube and the algorithm is not your friend, so get those push notifications turned on for the Terrace. It's an intriguing one when it comes to Gary Neville and what he thinks and feels about this Arsenal situation, because he's someone that wrote them off from the beginning last year, pretty much. He said they improved, but he wrote them off from the beginning. This is a team that last year very much spread those goals. The Martinellis and the Sakas of this world scored a hell of a lot. And I think that in the summer, the detractors of Mikel Arteta said they need a prolific number 9. They need a prolific number 9. They need a prolific number 9. And that was kind of pushed back by a lot of gooners that said, no, goals were not a problem last year. We were one of the highest goal-scoring teams in the Premier League. In fact, last season was Arsenal's highest goal-scoring campaign ever in Premier League football. And so far this season, they're currently sitting on 16 goals. But I think what's important to remember, if you go back to the 8-game mark, and I'm just looking at this last year, they had 20. So they're 4 goals worse off than they were last year. However, the likes of Gabriel Jesus starting games didn't happen from the beginning of the season. Saka has had a few injury problems, which has left him to being out of the side. And I think they'll be okay. Now, does adding Ivan Toney give them an even better chance of winning the Premier League? Absolutely. Adding more goals is always going to help. Where I feel the doubt creeping in is a little bit disingenuous, though, is surrounding the situation when it comes to Arsenal, because last year, all their doubters said they concede too much. There's too many opportunities they concede on goal. Now, suddenly, it's, well, they're not going to score enough. The goal-scoring ratio per game, in my personal opinion, it's basically on the par with last year. And at some point in the next few weeks, they're going to slap a few teams up. And all it's going to take is a couple of teams to be slapped up 3 or 4-0, and they're going to have scored the same amount as last year. And I think that Saka and Martinelli will get back to scoring goals, and I think Jesus could score enough for them to win the Premier League. Keeping goals out, stopping the teams from attacking you, I think is even more important. Does that mean they shouldn't add Ivan Toney? Does that mean he won't help them? No. But I think this idea that if they don't get Toney, that's it, they can't win the league. Personally, I don't quite agree.
Today, what happened today is going to be symbolic. It was a statement victory. It was the very definition of a statement victory, and their belief now off the back of that will be huge. At the end, we could see it. They went potty. That stadium was raucous. Their fans were going ballistic. I've just been on the tube. I've got on the tube.
I love about Rory. Even he speaks posh. His hair's even posh. He's got like that posh hair. It's messy, but it suits posh people.
King's Cross, mobbed with Arsenal fans and NFL fans, in fact, but mobbed with Arsenal.
Look at this. I didn't even notice that. This is what happens when you cuddle your children after they brush their teeth. Ridiculous. Thank you, Jackson.
Fans
anyway,
singing that they genuinely love Mikel Arteta, and I think they believe that a Premier League could be on the horizon. Not everybody predicted that they could win the league at the beginning of this season, but some very shrewd operators did. And anybody that did see it coming will really feel validated today. They will know that this
It's interesting what Rory's saying there, because I'm someone who predicted them halfway through last season to win it. The beginning of this campaign, I said City were favourites, and I still say they're favourites. Because City are so good and City come on strong. The difference is it's the people writing Arsenal off that I can't fathom where that thought process comes from other than hate. So when it comes to Gary Neville earlier, let me reiterate, because I know at 5 minutes and nearly 40 seconds in, there's going to be some people, my detractors, saying, "Oh, Terry, Neville doesn't hate Arsenal." I think he does as an ex-Man United player. I don't think his question has come from a place of hatred. I think he's just overly doubting Arsenal because of what's gone on in the past. For me, I believe that if Arsenal beat Chelsea this weekend, they move almost neck and neck with Man City in terms of joint favourites for me. Almost neck and neck with a win this weekend, which would cement that City win. Would be a massive away victory and keep them. And by the way, they got a very simplistic 10th game to be 2 points ahead of City, who are the favourites. No disrespect to Tottenham, at that 10-game mark would be seismic. Absolutely seismic for them.
How dare you!
What do Rivals fans think? What do you think about Manchester United? Can you be successful in the modern game when Man City are loaded, Newcastle are loaded, Arsenal are being run well, Liverpool are being run well? That's 4 spots. United would be looking to position themselves amongst the Spurs and the Brightons and the Aston Villas at the moment, who are all better than Manchester United. And we've not mentioned Chelsea in there as well. So there's 8 clubs better than Manchester United at the moment, and that's why United are down in mid-table. Can they find their... Where can Sir Jim Radcliffe position Manchester United over the next 3 years working with the Glazers? Because I'm not talking about 3 years' time when he might buy all of the club. And, you know, the stadium still needs rebuilding. They're still massively in debt. They've still got issues with financial fair play. They've still got people like Jadon Sancho, Harry Maguire on ridiculous wages that they can't sell. So what is it that Sir Jim Radcliffe is going to do over the next 3 years with the Glazers still in charge, but apparently taking a step back? How can they do that? And how successful can they be? Because I think United in crisis is something that, as United fans in the main, are concerned about. They're like...
It's a great question from Mark about United being in crisis. And Man United have been in crisis now for 10 years. The crisis was averted for the first 8 or so years of the ownership of the Glazers because we were run well. But the debt has increased. The debt owed to other clubs for transfers has increased. The stadium is rusting. The training facilities are substandard for a club with the size, heritage, and stature of Manchester United. There are players hemorrhaging money week in, week out on ridiculous salaries that we can't sell. And all of these things will stop the team from winning. There is I'm going to sound harsh when I say this because I don't know how to say it in a nice way. There is a very undereducated, basic level view of football that get a good coach, you win games. Buy better players, you win games. This may be true at well-run football clubs that have their house in order, have their ducks in a row, and that head coach or that manager can come in and there's nothing's ever seamless. There's always going to be trials and tribulations and problems, but they get to come in and work in a well-oiled, fully operational machine. It doesn't work at Manchester United because we're not in that position. So until the machine is fixed, well-oiled, and ready to go, debating managers and players as in terms of if changing them will fix the football club is obsolete. People like myself that have pushed that notion, we have won that debate because we've been right 5 times on the bounce. It's 5-0. If 2 boxers fought each other 5 times, okay, and boxer A knocks out boxer B 5 times on the bounce, and maybe one of those times as well outboxes him for 10, 11 rounds, so it shows that he's a better boxer as well, we'd all say we know boxer A is better than boxer B. So the idea of just sacking managers is an irrelevance at the club. And everything Mark says is right. The club is in crisis until the stadium does start to be improved, until the training facilities get improved, until we remove the dead wood, lower the wage bill, remove the debt. There is nothing Sir Jim Ratcliffe can do to hugely improve us if those elements are not addressed. As soon as they start addressing those elements, you will see an instant improvement at Manchester United. And there is a very modern, very contemporary example. Listen to the words that have come out of Longstaff's mouth at Newcastle and the difference in attitude and behaviour from players since the new ownership came in and they injected a new breed of culture into the football club. There's an expression used in business that is true, that culture eats strategy. So no matter how good your strategy is, how good your approach is, how good your employees are, if the culture is toxic, it will eat that strategy. And I've been saying this now for 10 straight years. And I genuinely mean this, until Man United fans drop their basic bitch attitude towards just sack a manager, just sell a player, just do this and we'll be fixed. Until that's dropped unilaterally and the real problems are focused on, United are never getting out of crisis. It's never going to happen. Because right now, I don't fully believe that Sir Jim will make these changes happen with the Glazers still there. And I don't think the Glazers are going to sell until they've maximised the money. And if Man United fans stop focusing on the real problems and keep giving them money, they're going to stay for a very, very long time indeed.
That choice of words, delighted to get him in the summer, but maybe somewhat surprised. What do you think has gone on here, Simon? Do you feel that the wool was pulled over Newcastle United's eyes when they signed this player? Because in the background, it was known in Italy that Tonali, sooner or later, and now sooner, would run into this betting scandal problem. And if so, are there grounds for compensation for Newcastle?
Was it known at the time? I mean, we are now becoming aware, as a result of the agent's comments, that there was a concern about gambling addiction. But is that as a result? Because we often find, and I know I said this yesterday, and I know that people don't like it. It seems to me that people find addictions very quickly when they're caught doing something. They have a consequence as a result of it, and that is not in any shape or form to diminish addiction or to diminish people that suffer from it. Because sometimes people that don't suffer from it and use it as a smokescreen are actually diminishing those that do. So I wonder about the timing of the information to suggest that somehow there's been collusion. Now, if an agent did know about this particular situation, is it his gift? Is it his responsibility? Is it his obligation? Did he elicit, solicit and coerce Newcastle into buying a player? No, they went in for a player that was available and they bought him. So is it the agent's responsibility? Has he profited from it? Of course he has. Would he in the real world have advanced a situation that maybe the player told him was under control? Maybe the player told him, my problems are in the past. We'll never know that particular conversation because it will never see the light of day unless there's some reason for seeing it, and that will come from the player's side. I think this is a very, very tricky area. We were debating about it yesterday about the
Simon Jordan's absolutely right. It's a very difficult area. And I sympathise hugely with Tonali if he's indeed suffering with an addiction of any sort. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I've never had that problem, but I can just only imagine and empathise with the problems that it will create. But this story is a can of worms. I spoke yesterday about how I'm personally disgusted at the difference in, especially the media and the way they've worded things about Tonali versus how they worded things about Ivan Toney. You then get down to the crux of the situation. What will his punishment be for illegal betting? What will his punishment be for admitting betting on AC Milan games? How long will that ban be? Will that ban impact Newcastle United? Were Newcastle United aware of this situation when they were buying him? Were AC Milan aware? Is that why AC Milan were so open to selling this player? Did they keep it from Newcastle? Did the agent, as Simon Jordan is kind of alluding to and talking about? And if so, are Newcastle owed compensation if he gets banned for 2 years, a year, even 1 year? There's talk he could be banned for up to 3. This is a very emotive and problematic situation indeed. And it's one that I don't think should be covered up by people that don't want it to be discussed. And I've had a lot of Newcastle fans message me in the last few days saying, stop talking about it. We don't know anything yet. I don't think it should be ignored. At the same time, I'm not suggesting that Newcastle have done anything wrong because we don't know that as of now. But The one thing I don't think we can do is just hide behind the player has an addiction and he should be left alone. He should be helped and he should be supported. But if rules have been broke within sport that damage the integrity, if criminal laws have been broke, he still needs to be investigated. I still think that needs to happen. And there's a way of which both of these elements can be handled at exactly the same time. But I would love to gauge your opinions, your views, your thought process surrounding this, because it is a very emotive subject indeed. But until next time, everybody, you take care of yourselves. Goodbye, God bless, and I'll see you all again soon.